Commander Jinwoo gripped the metal railing of the bridge as the massive alien ships blotted out the sun above Earth. Each Vorthak vessel was the size of a city, their crystal hulls reflecting Earth's blue sky like twisted mirrors. He had seen the footage from other worlds, entire civilizations wiped out in hours by these same ships. "How many?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 312 capital ships, sir, Lieutenant Mina replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes, plus thousands of smaller craft. Intel says each big ship carries enough firepower to crack a continent. The communication system crackled to life. An alien voice spoke in perfect English, cold and mechanical. "Primitive species of the third planet. You have been selected for integration into the Vorthak Empire. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Resist and suffer." Jinwoo looked around the bridge at his crew. These weren't professional soldiers. Most were volunteers who had signed up when the aliens first appeared at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago. Mina had been a teacher. Gunner Kyung was a mechanic. Communications officer Doyen used to fix computers. "Sir, what's our response?" Mina asked. Jinwoo thought about his daughter back on the surface, probably hiding in the school basement with her classmates. He thought about every human who had ever lived, loved, dreamed, and fought for something better. The aliens thought humans were just another species to crush. They were about to learn otherwise. "Tell them this," Jinwoo said, his voice carrying across the bridge. "Come and take it." The message went out on all frequencies. Across Earth's defense fleet, similar scenes played out. Captain Hyemin received the transmission aboard her fighter carrier. She had been a commercial pilot before the invasion, flying passenger jets between Seoul and Tokyo. Now she commanded 36 fighter pilots, most of whom had never seen combat. "You heard the commander," she announced over the squadron channel. "These crystal freaks think we'll roll over like everyone else. Time to show them what humans do when cornered." Her fighter launched from the carrier bay, followed by 35 others. The small craft looked like insects compared to the alien battleships, but Hyemin had studied the enemy footage. The Vorthak always used the same tactics. Massive ships in formation, overwhelming firepower, psychological warfare. They expected their enemies to break and run. Humans had different ideas about running. "Dragon Squadron, this is Dragon Leader," Hyemin transmitted. "Remember what we practiced. Hit fast, hit hard, and if your ship gets damaged, make it count." The Vorthak fleet began moving into attack formation, their crystal hulls gleaming like deadly jewels. Energy built up along weapon arrays that could melt through battleship armor. But they moved slowly, methodically, like predators who had never faced real resistance. Hyemin's squadron screamed toward them at full throttle. The aliens fired their massive beam weapons, lances of purple energy that could vaporize anything they touched. 3 human fighters disappeared in flashes of light, then 5 more. The formation should have broken apart in panic. Instead, the remaining fighters accelerated. "Dragon 7, I'm hit," came a voice over the radio. It was pilot Taeyang, his fighter trailing smoke and fire. "Punch out 7, Hyemin ordered. "Negative lead, my ejection system is fried, but my engines still work fine." There was a pause. "Tell my wife I love her." Taeyang's burning fighter slammed into the bridge of a Vorthak cruiser. The alien ship's crystal hull cracked like an eggshell, atmosphere venting into space along with alien bodies. The Vorthak fleet hesitated. In 1,000 conquests, no species had ever deliberately destroyed themselves to damage enemy ships. Their tactical computers had no response programmed for such behavior. That hesitation cost them. The remaining human fighters dove into their formation like angry wasps. Pilot Sumin managed to plant explosives on a battleship's engine before. Her fighter was vaporized. The massive alien vessel spun out of control, crashing into 2 of its neighbors. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Jinwoo watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They were losing ships fast, but every loss hurt the aliens too. The Vorthak had never faced an enemy willing to trade 1 for 1. "Sir, incoming transmission from the alien fleet," Mina reported. The same cold voice filled the bridge. "Your resistance is illogical. Cease these wasteful attacks. You cannot win." Jinwoo smiled, though there was no humor in it. "Tell them we're just getting started." Across Earth's surface, emergency broadcasts went out to every human settlement. The message was simple. The alien fleet was vulnerable. They could be hurt. They could be beaten. But it would cost everything humanity had. In underground bunkers and hidden bases, scientists worked frantically to understand captured alien technology. Soldiers prepared weapons that had never been tested in combat. Ordinary people said goodbye to their families and prepared to fight for their world. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they had never fought humans before. The sea. End Admiral Kethmore's 6 eyes stared at the holographic display showing his fleet's losses. In 3 days of fighting, the humans had destroyed 47 of his ships, not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer madness. His tactical computer kept flashing error messages because it couldn't process what these creatures were doing. "Admiral, another human vessel is approaching battleship Kethrol," reported his aide, a younger Vorthak with nervous clicking sounds in his speech. Kethmore watched as a tiny human cargo ship, barely the size of his shuttle, accelerated directly toward his most powerful warship. The battleship's weapons charged, ready to vaporize the insignificant craft. "Standard destruction protocol," Kethmore muttered, but something felt wrong. The human ship didn't try to dodge. Instead, it broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Jamin of the merchant vessel Lucky Star. I've got 40 tons of industrial explosives in my cargo hold and a dead man's switch. See you in hell, Crystal Face." The explosion that followed cracked the Kethrol's main hull and disabled half its weapon systems. Kethmore's mandibles clicked in frustration. No civilized species used suicide attacks as standard tactics. His warriors were trained to fight enemies who wanted to survive. 3,000 kilometers below, Dr. Su Young worked by the light of emergency lamps in her hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Seoul University. The Vorthak had bombed the surface, but the underground facilities remained intact. Pieces of alien technology covered her workbenches, crystal fragments, strange metal alloys, and most importantly, a partially intact alien computer core. "Come on, you crystalline piece of junk," she whispered, connecting human cables to alien ports. "Show me how you work." The device flickered to life, displaying symbols that hurt to look at directly. Su Young had been working for 60 hours straight, surviving on energy drinks and determination. Her team of engineers and computer specialists worked alongside her, reverse engineering technology that was centuries ahead of Earth's science. "Doctor, I think I've got something," called out Engineer Minsu from across the lab. He was hunched over a Vorthak weapon that had been torn from a destroyed fighter. Their energy weapons use quantum crystal matrices to focus power. But look at this. They're incredibly unstable when overloaded. Su Young rushed over, her tired eyes brightening. The alien weapon's crystal core was glowing with unstable energy. "If we can replicate this instability in their larger systems, we can turn their own weapons against them," Minsu finished. Above ground, the war raged through Seoul's destroyed streets. Sergeant Do-Yun crouched behind the twisted remains of a bus, watching 3 Vorthak warriors advance through the rubble. The aliens were 8 feet tall, covered in natural crystal armor, and carried weapons that could melt through concrete. His squad had only human-made rifles and explosives. "Ji-hoon, can you get a clear shot on the left one?" he whispered into his radio. "Negative, Sarge, but I can get close enough to kiss him goodbye," came the reply from Corporal Ji-hoon, who was hidden in the ruins of a coffee shop. Do-Yun understood. Ji-hoon was down to his last magazine and had a grenade with a faulty timer, the kind of weapon that was as dangerous to the user as the target. "Do it!" Do-Yun ordered. Ji-hoon sprinted from cover, firing his rifle to draw attention. The Vorthak warriors turned their weapons on him, purple energy beams scorching the air around him. He dove behind a concrete barrier just as his grenade went off, taking 2 aliens with him. The third Vorthak warrior advanced on Do-Yun's position, its weapon charging for a killing shot. That's when Private Unji dropped from a damaged building above, landing on the alien's back, with nothing but a combat knife and fierce determination. The creature tried to shake her off, but Yunji held on, driving her blade between the crystal plates of its armor. Green blood sprayed across the rubble as the alien fell. "These things bleed just like anything else," she panted, helping Do-Hyun to his feet. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Humans with inferior weapons and no armor were somehow killing Vorthak warriors through tactics no military manual had ever described. They used the ruins as weapons, turned destroyed vehicles into bombs, and fought with a creativity born of desperation. Back on his flagship, Admiral Kethmore received reports from ground commanders. Their words made no sense. The humans fight. Without regard for survival, they use their own deaths as weapons. Morale among our troops is declining. Declining morale? The Vorthak had never experienced such a thing. They were conquerors, masters of the galaxy. But these humans were doing something no other species had managed. They were making the Vorthak afraid. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human underground. They claim to have a message for you personally." The message appeared on his screen. A human female in a dirty lab coat looked directly at the camera. It was Dr. Su Young broadcasting from her hidden laboratory. "Admiral Kethmore," she said calmly, "we've figured out how your weapons work. And more importantly, we've figured out how to make them explode. Your ships, your ground forces, your entire invasion fleet. They're all carrying weapons that we can now turn into bombs. Consider this your only warning." The transmission ended. Kethmore stared at the blank screen, his certainty beginning to crack like human concrete under Vorthak fire. The end engineer Taehyung stared at the alien shield generator he had been working on for 18 straight hours. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking from too much caffeine, but he could feel he was close to a breakthrough. The Vorthak crystal technology was like nothing Earth had ever seen, but it followed certain patterns. The frequency modulation, "There's all wrong," he muttered, adjusting the human-made interface he had jury-rigged to the alien device. "They're using harmonic resonance, but in reverse." Suddenly, the shield generator hummed to life, but instead of the purple energy field the Vorthak used, this one glowed blue-white. Taehyung's heart raced as he realized what had happened. He hadn't just copied their shield technology, he had improved it. "Dr. Su Young," he shouted across the underground laboratory, "I've got it. The shields aren't just defensive. We can make them offensive too." Within minutes, the entire research team gathered around Taehyung's workstation. The reversed shield technology could do more than protect. It could disrupt other Vorthak systems, overload their weapons, and even tear apart their ship hulls from the inside. "How fast can we build more of these?" Dr. Su Young asked. "Give me every engineer you can find and all the captured alien tech we have," Taehyung replied. 6 hours, and we'll have enough units to change this war." 3,000 miles away, Colonel Jisoo sat in the command bunker, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility had been built during the Cold War to survive nuclear attacks, but now it served as humanity's last military headquarters. Banks of computers and communication equipment lined the walls, manned by officers who had been working around the clock since the invasion began. "Colonel, we're receiving reports from all sectors," reported Major Hyejin. "The new shield disruptors are working better than expected. Our forces are punching through Vorthak defenses like they're made of paper." Jisoo studied the tactical display, showing Earth's military situation. For the first time in weeks, the red markers representing enemy forces were being pushed back. Human units equipped with the new technology were advancing on multiple fronts. "All units, this is Falcon Base," she announced over the global military network. "Operation Payback is a go. Time to show these crystal-headed invaders what happens when you mess with Earth." The coordinated counterattack began simultaneously across the globe. In orbit above Earth, the human space fleet, what was left of it, activated their new shield disruptors. Captain Sung-ho watched from his damaged cruiser as Vorthak battleships began experiencing system failures. "Their shields are collapsing," reported his weapons officer. "Multiple explosions across their fleet." The tide of battle shifted in minutes. Vorthak ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found their own weapons turning against them. Crystal hulls cracked as overloaded systems exploded from within. The aliens' perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ship after ship suffered catastrophic failures. Admiral Kethmore watched his fleet disintegrate on the tactical display. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being destroyed by the same technology they had used for centuries. His communications officer was receiving panicked reports from across the invasion force. "Admiral, The humans have somehow weaponized our own shield technology, the officer reported, his voice filled with disbelief. 17 capital ships destroyed, 43 more reporting critical damage. Kethmore's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his species. How is this possible? No primitive species has ever reverse-engineered Vorthak technology. Sir, incoming priority transmission from the High Command, his communications officer announced. The holographic image of High Admiral Vexthar appeared, his crystalline features twisted with rage. Kethmore, what is the meaning of these reports? How are you losing ships to these primitives? High Admiral, these humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt, they learn, and they fight with complete disregard for their own survival, Kethmore explained. They have somehow turned our own technology against us. Impossible, Vexthar snarled. You are being defeated by inferior beings. As if to prove Kethmore's point, alarms began blaring throughout his flagship. A single human fighter had somehow penetrated the fleet's defensive perimeter and was approaching at impossible speed. Pilot Wubin gripped the controls of his modified fighter, the new shield disruptor humming with power beneath his aircraft. His squadron had been destroyed in the initial attack, his wingman Minjun killed by alien fire just minutes earlier. But his ship still flew and he still had one chance to make a difference. This is Ghost Rider to all units, he transmitted on all frequencies. I'm going for the command ship. If this works, their whole fleet command structure goes down with it. The Vorthak defensive guns opened fire, purple energy beams lancing through space toward his tiny craft. But the new shield technology deflected their shots, sending the energy cascading back toward their own ships. Wubin's fighter streaked through the alien formation like a comet of revenge. Come on, you beautiful machine, he whispered to his fighter. Let's show them what human engineering can do. The command ship's crystal bridge loomed ahead of him, its transparent walls revealing the alien officers inside. Kethmore himself stood at the center, his 6 eyes wide with shock as he realized what was about to happen. Wubin's fighter, supercharged with reversed Vorthak technology, punched through the crystalline hull like a bullet through glass. The explosion that followed lit up the void of space, taking out not just the bridge but the entire forward section of the alien flagship. Across the Vorthak fleet, chaos reigned as command signals stopped coming. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired wildly, and entire formations broke apart without central coordination. On Earth's surface, human forces pressed their advantage. The aliens who had seemed so terrifying just days before were now in full retreat, their technology turned against them by human ingenuity and determination. The End Emperor Kethvrak emerged from stasis aboard his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, expecting to find reports of Earth's complete destruction. Instead, his aide presented him with tactical data that made no sense. His invasion fleet was gone, destroyed, by primitives who shouldn't have been able to scratch the paint on a Vorthak. Shuttle. Impossible, the Emperor hissed, his massive form towering over the bridge crew. Unlike other Vorthak, the Emperor's crystalline armor was black as space, with veins of purple energy running through it. He had personally conquered 50 worlds. Bring me visual confirmation of this planet's surrender. The main screen flickered to life, showing Earth from orbit. But instead of a dead world, they saw something that chilled every Vorthak heart. Human ships, thousands of them, patrolled Earth's space, ships that glowed with the distinctive energy signatures of Vorthak technology, but modified, improved, weaponized in ways that defied all logic. My Emperor, trembled his tactical officer, the humans appear to have not only survived, but thrived. They've turned our own technology against us and built an entire defense fleet. General Myung floated in zero gravity aboard the command station, orbiting Earth's moon. Through the massive viewing port, she could see the Emperor's armada, 500 of the largest Vorthak ships ever built, each one capable of destroying a continent. But humanity was no longer the same species that had faced the first invasion 3 months ago. All ships, this is Lunar Command, she broadcast across the human fleet. The Emperor himself has come to finish what his admirals couldn't. Every ship, every pilot, every soul. This is our moment. Show them what humanity means. The response came from 1,000 human voices across the communication network. Fighter pilots, battleship crews, engineers, medics, all of them volunteers who had chosen to stand between Earth and extinction. Captain Xionghuan stood on the bridge of the destroyer Rising Phoenix, a ship built from salvaged alien hull plating and human engineering. His crew was a mix of former cargo haulers, space station workers, and anyone else who could learn to fight in the void between stars. "Captain, enemy fleet is moving into attack formation," reported his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Chung He, all power to forward shields," Xionghuan ordered. "Load the special torpedoes. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as possible." The special torpedoes were a human innovation, alien warheads modified with human technology to create cascading explosions that could chain react through multiple enemy ships. One torpedo could potentially destroy an entire formation if aimed correctly. The battle began with the fury of a dying star. The Emperor's fleet opened fire with weapons that could melt asteroids, but humanity had learned to dance between the energy beams. Human ships moved with unpredictable patterns, using Earth's moon and orbital debris as cover. Xionghuan's destroyer screamed toward the enemy formation, its improvised armor glowing red-hot from enemy fire. "Target the 3 battleships in Delta formation," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." The Rising Phoenix unleashed its modified torpedo spread, just as enemy fire overwhelmed its shields. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, but its torpedoes found their marks. The chain reaction that followed destroyed not just 3 Vorthak battleships, but 7 more ships caught in the cascade. On the surface of Earth, Medical Officer Chaeyong worked frantically in a field hospital set up in the ruins of what used to be Tokyo. The building shook constantly from orbital bombardment, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling as she operated on wounded soldiers. "Doctor, we need to evacuate," urged Nurse Youngmin as another explosion rocked the area. "The Vorthak are targeting all surface installations." "These soldiers can't be moved yet," Chaeyong replied, not looking up from her patient, a pilot, who had ejected from his destroyed fighter. "We don't abandon our people." As if summoned by her words, a section of the hospital wall exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped a Vorthak ground warrior, its crystal armor scorched from battle, its weapon raised to fire. Chaeyong stepped between the alien and her patients, holding nothing but a medical scanner. "You want them? You go through. Me first." The Vorthak warrior hesitated. In all its campaigns, it had never encountered a healer who refused to flee. Before it could fire, Corporal Sungjin tackled it from behind, wrestling the massive alien to the ground with nothing but human determination and a combat knife. High above the planet, the space battle reached its climax. The Emperor's flagship, a crystal monstrosity the size of a small city, pushed through the human defensive lines toward Earth. Its weapons could crack continents, and it seemed nothing could stop it. That's when 18-year-old Heian volunteered for the impossible mission. She had been a college student just months ago, studying art history. Now she sat in the cockpit of a captured Vorthak fighter, its alien controls modified with human interfaces. The plan was simple and suicidal: fly a single fighter through the flagship's defenses and destroy it from within. "This is Comet Leader." "To Lunar Command," she transmitted, her young voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to attempt. Beginning final approach on the Emperor's ship. The massive Vorthak flagship grew larger in her viewport, its crystal hull bristling with defensive weapons. Energy beams lanced out, trying to swat her fighter like an annoying insect. But Hayun had learned to fly like a human, unpredictably, creatively, with moves no alien computer could anticipate. She spiraled between the defensive fire, her fighter's hull glowing from near misses. The flagship's hangar bay loomed ahead, an opening in the crystal hull big enough to fly a small moon through. "For Earth," she whispered into her radio as her fighter screamed into the enemy ship's heart. The explosion that followed could be seen from the surface of the planet, a new star blooming in the darkness of space as the Emperor's flagship tore itself apart from within. The end. The silence in space was deafening. Where once the mighty Vorthak armada had blotted out the stars, now only debris floated in the void around Earth. The impossible had happened. Humanity had won, not just survived, but completely defeated an empire that had ruled the galaxy for over 2,000 years. President Junho stood in the ruins of what used to be the United Nations building in New York. Half the structure was gone, destroyed by Vorthak orbital bombardment, but the remaining walls still held. Behind him, engineers worked to restore the global communication systems that would carry his message to every corner of the galaxy. "Are we broadcasting?" he asked Communications Director Minje. "Yes, sir. Every human ship, every resistance cell, every enslaved world in Vorthak space is receiving this signal," Minje confirmed. Junho looked directly into the camera, his face bearing the scars of months of warfare. "To all beings across the galaxy who can hear this message, the Vorthak Empire is finished. Their fleets are destroyed, their emperor is dead, and their reign of terror is over." He paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds where enslaved species had waited centuries for hope. "We are humanity of Earth, and we offer alliance to all who seek freedom. We have proven that oppressors can be defeated, that tyrants can fall, and that no empire lasts forever. The age of oppression ends here, ends now, ends with us." Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the reptilian Kelrati workers stopped their forced labor and looked up at the sky. For the first time, in 300 years, they dared to hope. Commander Sunwoo received the liberation orders while his fleet was still cleaning up Vorthak stragglers in the outer solar system. His task force consisted of 20 human ships, a mix of hastily converted cargo vessels and purpose-built warships constructed from captured alien technology. "Navigation, set course for the Kelrathi homeworld," he ordered from the bridge of his flagship, the Liberator. "Communications, broadcast our message on all frequencies as we approach their system." The message was simple but powerful. "This is the Human Liberation Fleet. We're here to free you." When Sunwoo's ships arrived at Kepler 442b, they found the Kelrathi had already begun their uprising. The few remaining Vorthak garrison forces were overwhelmed by millions of workers who had finally found the courage to fight back. The sight of human ships in their sky, ships flying under the banner of freedom, gave them strength they never knew they had. "Commander," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Jaesung, "we're receiving surrender requests from all remaining Vorthak positions on the planet." "Accept their surrender," Sunwoo replied, "but make it clear they face justice for their crimes. The age of unpunished oppression is over." Meanwhile, Captain Yeona was establishing humanity's first diplomatic presence on Nexus Prime, formerly one of the Vorthak Empire's most important colony worlds. The planet had been a hub of alien trade and governance, but now its crystal spires stood empty as their former masters fled in terror. "The local species are requesting formal alliance with Earth," reported her diplomatic aide, Specialist Bomin. "They're offering full access to their historical archives and star charts." Yona smiled as she looked out at the alien cityscape. Species that had been forced to serve the Vorthak for centuries were now free to choose their own destiny. "Tell them we accept their friendship, not their servitude. Humanity doesn't conquer, we liberate." Deep in the bowels of the human battleship Retribution, Admiral Kethmore sat in a containment cell designed to hold Vorthak prisoners. The once mighty commander who had terrorized entire star systems was now just another war criminal awaiting trial. His crystalline armor was cracked, his pride shattered along with his empire. Captain Jiwon entered the cell carrying a simple metal stool. She sat down across from the alien who had ordered the deaths of millions of humans, studying his defeated form with calm eyes. "I have studied your species for decades," Kethmore said, his voice filled with confusion and bitter defeat. "Your technology was primitive. Your ships were inferior. Your weapons were crude. How did you defeat us? How did a species that barely reached their own moon manage to destroy an empire that spans the galaxy?" Jiwon was quiet for a long moment, remembering the friends she had lost, the cities that had burned, the impossible odds they had faced. "You want to know our secret?" "Yes," the alien admiral whispered. "You conquered species that wanted to live," she said simply. "We were a species that had already decided to die. The difference is, we chose to die fighting rather than die kneeling, And sometimes when you have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for, dying becomes winning. Kethmore's mandibles clicked in what might have been understanding. Your species is insane. Maybe, Jiwon agreed, but we're free. News of humanity's victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On world after world, enslaved species rose up against their Vorthak oppressors. The empire that had seemed eternal began crumbling as rebellions sparked in every corner of their territory. The Zephyrian bird people reclaimed their sky cities. The aquatic depths dwellers drove Vorthak forces from their ocean worlds. Ancient species that had forgotten the meaning of freedom remembered it again, inspired by the example of one small blue planet that had refused to surrender. Within a year, the Vorthak Empire was nothing but history. Their surviving ships fled to the darkest corners of space, their former subjects now free to build their own futures. Trade routes that had been controlled by crystal tyrants became highways of cooperation between liberated worlds. 10 years later, in a classroom on the freed world of Zentara 7, a young teacher named Corin told her students the story that had become legend throughout the galaxy. "Remember this, children," she said, her scales shimmering with emotion. "When the darkness seemed absolute, when hope was just a memory, a single species stood up and said no more. The humans of Earth proved that freedom isn't given, it's taken. They showed us that even the mightiest empire can fall if enough people are willing to fight for what's right." One small student raised her hand. "Teacher, are the stories really true? Did they really defeat the Vorthak all by themselves?" Corin smiled, looking up at the stars visible through the classroom window. "Yes, little one. They stood alone against the darkness and won. The end."